This is the second video that I wanted to do. I just did one, talking about the, some of the work of John Mark Dougan. But actually, this was the first video I wanted to make. But I'm kind of doing this on the wing here. So, but I have notes here, and I'll read this one too. It makes it a little bit easier for me, so I don't forget some information. And again, I told you I don't really know what the date is, but like I say, today is the day after yesterday, if that tells you anything. I did a video yesterday, so that's about all I can say about that. But I wanted to talk about like foreign investment coming into Russia and Belarus. And I think Garland Nixon was going to talk somewhat about that. I didn't watch that video. I don't have so much time necessarily, even though I get up very early in the morning, and just sitting around watching videos, getting information. As much as I like doing that, I just don't have the time. And right now I'm supposed to be probably trying to learn Russian because I'm sort of dead in the water. Can't really do too much, even for these videos, and unless I learn a lot more Russian. I don't think I'm going to be at that level where I can understand everything they're talking about in the news, and I don't really want to misconvey something. If I get some word wrong, I might give you the opposite definition or meaning of what actually really did happen. So I'm going to have to be careful about that in the future. So, but I do hear some things from people that are Russian, and they tell me what's being said or something in the English language. So now I'm just going to talk about like foreign investment and what I've been noticing here, and what I've been hearing, that there's so much investment now flooding into Russia, and I'm not sure. I get the news mostly about what's going on in Russia, but also I can tell you I see signs of a lot of investment coming in here into Belarus as well, and I'll talk about why I say that in a moment. But let's go first into Russia. So why would people want to go to Russia? Why would foreign investment be flooding into Russia? And from what countries is this investment coming from? A lot of it obviously is not coming from Europe, but there is still some investment coming from Europe and going into Russia. But on the other hand, there is more investment coming from Europe going to Belarus, even though it's not super significant. And of course, some companies did pull out of Belarus, but it has a little bit of a different status as far as sanctions than Russia. So, for example, McDonald's never pulled out of here, and I'm believing Coca-Cola maybe pulled out of Russia, but it didn't pull out of Belarus either. And there are still a lot of, other businesses that are still here. Burger King's still here. KFC. I mean, those are just the things that I know about. And then you go into the shopping malls, and there's not that much closed. H&M had pulled out, and I believe they're coming back, or they never really did pull out. They just closed the store. But they have shutters down, but they're still apparently renting, at least in the places that I have seen. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know the true story on that. And of course, there's Lithuanian businesses here. There's a lot of that, I believe. A lot of like smaller and even larger supermarkets from Lithuania. And there's Dutch supermarkets here, even though the products, of course, mostly are Belarusian. But the reason why a lot of investment is coming from China and other countries, like a lot of Asian countries, are going to Russia and are really flooding in, like you would not believe. And it's not just because of the friendship that China and Russia have and the alliances that they're now forming. It's mostly because of the very cheap resources that you can get them much cheaper in Russia. And it's natural gas. Natural gas is obvious, and that's the one that I'll be talking about. The price of natural gas in Russia compared to Europe, the rest of Europe. So, and some of these numbers that I've heard, so let me tell you about that. That's more shocking than a lot of people. I hope you're all sitting down there in the United States and especially in Germany, because these prices are really going to blow your mind. And it's, people are not talking about it. I'm hoping that I. Earl Grey, he mentions this. I hope he catches this, watches this video, and he mentions this, maybe even where he's at in Donbass, because he probably already knows this, or he's having contacts in case he never paid attention while he was in St. Petersburg, before he goes back, whenever that might be, and he can verify what I'm telling you, because I'm sure it must be true in, well, it's probably not quite as true maybe in Moscow and St. Petersburg. But I'll tell you, Ekaterinburg, which is in the Urals, you can have a big apartment and your heating bill is like €3 a month. And if you compare that to what I experienced myself when I was living in West Germany, and it was like, we're talking 20 years ago, and we were paying €30 a month for our gas, for an apartment. So that's very significant. But actually, the place was bigger, I believe, and I was actually in a what do they call that in Germany? It's when other people have rooms there as well. So it was a bigger place, but nevertheless, it's still much more expensive in Europe. I think I have a friend in Holland, and I think he was telling me that but Holland, you get cheaper gas because they have their own gas fields, natural gas, in Groningen in north of Holland, and I think he was, and the prices have not gone up significantly there because of that, and I think he was telling me that he was paying €18 a month for his apartment, and that was just like a month or so ago, and that's like the October price. And October price is very good because you still have to use gas, but it's not really cold yet. So I'm projecting that when you mention a price for gas in October, that might be an average price of throughout the year, because you're using gas, but you're not using it in the really cold months, say starting maybe 15th of December all the way up and throughout February, and then of course in the summer months, maybe spring, you don't use it at all, and the summer you don't use it all. So I would say if you take the October price and you go times 12, that's probably normally what your gas bill is, for the whole year, I mean per month, I guess. I'm not experiencing a little bit of Brandon brain at the moment, like shaking hands with people that don't exist and getting into word salads or something like that. So, but and that's another question. I mentioned Jutta Brock in my last video, and I'd like to, if she watches this video, she could also tell me what she's paying right now in Lüneburg for gas. I'd be interested to know. A lot of the friends that I have in Germany, because a lot of them are quite depressed, and they don't really want to talk about this stuff so much anymore. And they told me they're depressed. They even use those words. I have other friends, and I haven't reached out to them, but I wrote to somebody, and she's not really writing back, and I wanted to know about prices and things like that. And then another person that lives right nearby her is saying that he's just so depressed, he really doesn't really want to talk about it. So that's terrible. That's really terrible. And it makes you wonder, I don't know about if they're going to the protests, or I don't know, maybe they're too sad to go to the protests. Maybe a lot of people in Germany have lost hope. I really don't know. I'd like to know. I don't get that impression from Uta, so she might be a better one to talk to about that. I'm looking forward to her comment, your comment if you're watching. Okay, that price that I'm hearing about, like €3 a month for I think about they're pretty well off. So I'm assuming they have at least an 80 square meter apartment, and they're paying, I believe, €3 a month. Actually, I believe they said it was less, but maybe I think that was in September, and actually it snowed there in September. So I don't know. I really don't know. I just know that it's very cheap. It's much, much cheaper than in Germany. I think the gas prices have gone down because they're not selling so much now to Europe, and and they're still producing, quite a bit of gas, so they can, ask less from the Russian people themselves. So, And I had a house in Germany, and it was very big. And I got it in East Germany, and the gas bill, even though nobody lived in that house and it was turned down almost as low as it could be, and this was in 2017, and it was 395 square meters, and it was a house that needed to be renovated a lot. I had to actually sell it to a large extent because I could not really afford to pay those gas bills. And that was 1,000 something euros a year, And right now, if I had that house, of course I'd have the gas shut off. There's no doubt about that. It would be like probably over 3,000, at least from what I'm hearing about how much the gas prices have gone up in Germany. So anyway, back to investment in Russia. And Russia doesn't only have just gas. They have a lot of other resources, and of course it's much cheaper over there. Labor in Russia is much cheaper than in the West, even though I don't know what it compares to the labor costs in China, but it's you can see why, business investment is going to be, and it is flooding into Russia. The people are well-educated people there, and of course they have not been hate indoctrinated like in the West. So they're I don't want to say they're smarter people, but I think most Russians were taught to think in a different way than in the West. We get so extreme in the West. We're taught to think in extremities, I think. And they're not really taught that way in Russia. I'm finding out that, but I can't really describe it right now, but I'm just letting you know that. And any of you that are out there right now and even thinking about moving to Russia or Belarus, that is also a very big plus. If you have children and you want to raise them here, you're not taught this in the West. But moralities, to be moral, to have a stronger moral compass. They don't tell you that in the West, that they actually have a stronger moral compass over here than the general people in the West have, And it's not that they teach you to, have any kind of wickedness or, hate or anything like that in the West. It's just that here it's a lot more stressed, and there's an absence of a lot of this hatred. Sure, there are people here that are that can rip you off. Anytime you have a lot of innocent population, and I've seen that myself. I used to live in Oregon, and in Oregon, you had these gangs from California, from Southern California, and the people in Oregon, like Portland, were very innocent at one point in time, and they, found out that the gangs from LA and all that found out, and they moved up into Portland. It was easy pickings, and then drug wars, and then and even a lot of the people in Oregon began to have a, I don't really want to say racist or something, but they began to have this hatred of, and they steered a lot of it towards black people because they didn't have that many black people in Oregon. Believe it or not, I think it was there was a law against having black people in Oregon. I think well beyond the Civil War. I think it went up into 1880s or something. You have to look that up yourself. Just studying history and hearing all these weird facts. It's just amazing. Even hearing things about the United States itself. That you never knew about. But and then you hear about all these riots that happened in Portland, and there was the chief of police was black, and he was shocked because most of his officers were black. Oh, hello, sir.
Добрый день.
Добрый день.
Меня снимать не надо. Я буду вас снимать.
Well, I just had an incident here. The police came. Somebody reported me as some suspicious character sitting here. So probably some babushka, as you could expect, because they heard me mentioning Ukraine. So I don't know. Maybe they thought I was some kind of a terrorist. People are looking at you. A lot of the older people here, and it's actually not a negative sign. The policemen were very nice. And I don't have any ID with me, so I had to go back home and present ID and that sort of thing. But I'm back again, and of course I purposely came here back to the same place because whoever reported me, they can see that I they don't have anything to fear, and actually maybe just rubbing it in a little bit to say, hey, look at you didn't you didn't kick me out of here. So that's what that's all about. But anyway, I was doing this video here about investment in like Russia and Belarus, and here in Belarus, I'm not quite sure where I left off, because that was quite some minutes here and it was quite an ordeal. But anyway, I was going to say investment, and people that invest here in Belarus, a lot of them are a lot of the people from the stands, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan and all that sort of thing. And of course you see some Chinese and all, but there's Turkish as well. And but before this, at least in the in the recent past, it was mostly always Europeans, and of course a lot of these big firms all over. And you had some Chinese, like DJI has a shop, and Sony had a shop, and some of them closed down. I think partly it's not really because they pulled out of anything to do with sanctions. It's because of the drop in the value of a lot of these foreign currencies. So they couldn't make any money. People weren't buying items from some of these shops, so they had to close up because they didn't get see these shops, and a lot of these items that are sold in it, even though they're made in China, which was not affecting the exchange rate. I believe they were sold through Europe, or maybe the United States. I know that DJI, I'm using a DJI camera right now, and I bought it here in Belarus, and the price wasn't so bad. But if I were to go to the DJI shop, the price was a lot higher, and they're still operating, and they have a lot of these DJI drones, but I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to, to stay open, because they're working, I guess, through firms through Europe, and the euro has dropped considerably. So it was going up, and then it went down, and I know this camera was way overpriced, and I don't know if the recent drop in the euro has now been reflected in the prices of buying these goods or not. So it's because obviously if the euro drops, the price of any of these items would be cheaper. But maybe it depends on when they stocked up, or what price they paid for drones and things when the exchange rate was completely the opposite, which it was for quite some time there. So don't want to get into that too much. But anyway, a lot of these people that originally left, after the beginning of this military operations, they left because it was just virtue signaling, to show how much they love Ukraine, which they don't love Ukraine, of course, at all. But it's all just for appearances, to appear to love Ukraine. It's what is it? It's based on on just your perceptions, not on any reality anyway. And then as I've stated, and a lot of people also know, the U.S. and a lot of those Europeans, they hate Ukraine. They hate Ukraine just as much as they hate Russia, or not quite as much. They just hate Russia more, and they're afraid of Russia, so they're trying to collapse Russia. And of course, I'm not talking about the citizens. I'm talking about a lot of these people in government, because they're out to get Russia, and they think they're going to move in like vultures and take over everything, get all the resources, get cheap gas, or pay nothing for gas and whatsoever. And that's why they're all jumping on the bandwagon. It's just despicable. And I'm sure most of you that are watching this, or the people that watch these videos, you agree with me on that. The bad side of humanity. So, and instead of investing and then working together through trade, and they would find out that the Russians and the Chinese and the Indians, or the Asians and the Hispanics, they're not any different really than the Europeans or the Americans. So like I said, you people watching this, that this is all just despicable, trying to say like Iranians are all bad people or whatnot. Sure, they have some parts in their religious culture, and and then you have a lot of these extremist Muslims, of course, that went to Sweden, and it's very strange that you have a lot of these same people. They went to Germany, and yet they don't have these enclaves that are trying to declare their own country within Germany or something like that, but like they were in Sweden. I guess it's just on how you handle this immigration. migration or whatever you want to call it. So anyway, we're just talking about the investment, and of course all of this has to do with investment. But anybody who would be thinking about coming to Belarus, I don't know about sales, because Lukashenko, he's actually very much people oriented, and he's trying to keep prices down, and they really look for people that are trying to price gouge and to overcharge people. And I think a lot of times the businesses are suffering from that because maybe it's a little bit overdone. I don't know. If it was so badly overdone, wouldn't be any businesses operating anymore, selling anything. But if you're into production, I think they will do so much for you. If you're producing, especially high-tech items here and things like that, I tell you, this is the place to come. And it's not being broadcast anywhere in the West, but if any of you out there are involved in, say, producing computer chips or even they make refrigerators. There are a few firms making refrigerators here. There are people that make trucks, big heavy-duty trucks and buses and things like that. But if you produce any sort of a high-tech sort of items, you really might want to put that on your radar. You can contact me, and if you're really serious, I can try to look into that for you. Anybody that has that's in some sort of business is doing something like that. I would make a great effort for that, because it's a good place, and I'm just mainly out for humanity. And if businesses, if you're a honest business and you operate fairly, and this might be a very good place for you. Like I said, the people are very good here. Crime is very low, very clean, as you see in the videos, and so I'll just have to stress that. There's so much more I'd like to say here. Another sign I'm telling you that there's a lot of investment, say, from China coming here as well, not just Russia, is like I'm in Russian classes right now, and there are 2 parallel classes right now. When I came in, I can't remember how many students they said altogether, but there's such a demand, and I think like every week there are more Chinese students or prospective students trying to get in to learn Russian here, because there's, like I say, investment really flooding in here. And there are altogether in this university class, and there's even though it's a very small university in a medium-sized little town here in Belarus, there are altogether at least 44 students, and 43 of them are Chinese. I'm the only one that isn't Chinese, so even the teachers speak some Chinese, and a lot of the instruction, well, some of it is done in Chinese, and I'm sitting here, I don't know the difference if it's Chinese or Russian, and I'm thinking like an idiot, like, what the heck are they talking about here? But it's just a small amount. I'm still doing pretty good here, so I'm at least at the above average in the class. So, and that's quite an accomplishment, because Chinese people are, as you know, they're not slackers. They're out there and they're studying, and they're smart people. So I'm glad to say that I'm maybe at least a little bit above average. And the reason why I can say that is because with the Chinese language, of course, it's a lot more difficult for them to pronounce maybe a lot of these Russian words than me, and then there's writing is a lot different. So Russian writing is a lot, even though it's not the same as English, it's not Latin letters, it's at least closer to the Latin script than the Chinese. So I'm doing good in those areas, and that's probably my salvation. Yeah, because like I said, these are smart people here, these Chinese people, and most of these are all young business people. I have to stress that, or else I believe that, because there's a lot more women. I think a lot of them are the wives. I don't know about daughters. Maybe in some cases some are daughters of Chinese business people. So that's something to keep in mind, and just to notice these things. It's very important, and you can, apply this to what you might see in the future, and and you'll be looking back and say, oh, I saw the signs for that. I remember back in the 70s, I saw so many items being made in China, and nobody was ever talking about China becoming a great power, and I was realizing it back then, and I knew that. I'm just maybe I wasn't energetic or enough, or maybe I was a little bit too stupid to, maybe to learn Chinese or something like that, or get more involved into some sort of a, business that would, work with Chinese or something like that. I just, unless you're some sort of a, xenophobic, racist or something like that, I don't have that, that sort of a attitude in me at all. So at least that's one good thing. Back in those days, I think it was when was it? And when I was in the university, it was about like the mid to 80s, about 86. We had a lot of Iranian students back then, and a lot of Iranian students all over in the United States. And now, of course, you see that Iran has moved up quite a bit as far as in technology and things. A lot of young people, and they're doing very well. And I'm hoping that anybody watching this has not been indoctrinated to hate the Iranians, like the government wants. As I said, there's the enemy of the week or enemy of the month, and Russia is the enemy of the century. But you got all these other countries, and the United States media and government, tries to tell you who your enemy of the month is. So very interesting things. But I should end now. This is going to be a long video too, and if the algorithms brought you here to watch this, you can subscribe, and I hope to be making a lot more interesting videos in the future. But a lot of time I have to be concentrating on learning Russian, because I'm dead in the water if I don't learn Russian here. So and I can maybe even bring a lot better content in the future when I do learn Russian. So thank you, subscribe, and till the next time, bye.